in the summer, hundreds of people come to Ilkley to swim.
By the time I'd got out, I was draped in wipes, sanitary towels and unmentionables.
We will be the ones that end up paying, there's no doubt about it.
This is Therese Coffey.
She came on here utterly useless.
And she's the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And she's been causing controversy. We're not talking about her singing, which also is quite controversial in the timing of when she's caught recording this, but that is for another tale, which will be on the best of Therese Coffey. It's to do with sewage being pumped into our seas and rivers, a Brexit bonus. This is Coffey in 2019 extolling the virtues of privatising our water.
Now, since privatisation, around £140 billion has been invested in infrastructure, and that's equivalent to about £5 billion a year. That is almost double the level prior to privatisation, and customer satisfaction levels have risen to around 90%. So customers are now 5 times less likely to suffer interruptions to their supply, 8 times less likely to suffer from sewer flooding, and 100 times less likely to experience low flow pressure than when it was a nationalised industry.
Yet by 2023 it had all gone to pot. Just have a listen to some of these statistics being read out on Good Morning Britain.
372,533 times last year, raw sewage was discharged into our waterways. Disgusting. Right? Just to add that vulgar insult onto injury, the water bosses in 2011 gifted themselves, my language, not theirs, no doubt there'll be a right to reply in due course, I look forward to hearing from them, received £24.8 million in bonuses. What does that do to people's trust and faith, not just in capitalism, but in the services that are provided to them?
Yeah, it's a dirty business. And, I like the way you didn't say they earned 24 million, because they didn't earn it, they've been gifted it. In England, it's a privatised system. Many of those companies are now owned abroad. They're not British owned. And Therese Coffey, the Environment Secretary, is they've got around their little finger. Why isn't she saying? Because we know the only way you will get them regulated and acting is if there are tough penalties. Because they are pumping this sewage into rivers and in the seas, and it gets washed in beaches. And you have surfers in Cornwall actually surfing in sewage.
It shouldn't just be fines. Why aren't they prosecuting the directors of these companies and putting them in a witness box?
The unfortunate thing is that this is totally illegal, and it hasn't even stopped some firms who have been fined over £90 million from continuing the practice.
What's happening here is perfectly legal. Water companies are allowed to discharge into rivers and seas when there's a risk of pipes overflowing. But the criticism is that it happens too often, not just when there's been heavy rain, but light rain too, and that there hasn't been enough investment in infrastructure to stop it from being needed.
And interestingly, it appears to have really aggravated the French because, as you can see with Brexit, being a bit selfish in your country can affect other countries. So much so that MEP Stephanie Yvonne said, "The Channel and the North Sea are not dumping grounds." How on earth are we meant to solve environmental problems if each country is just going off and doing their own thing? It's not going to happen. And it's interesting because we're about to hear a response from Therese Coffey in Parliament.
He calls nature the Cinderella of the story, but Cinderella was never forced to swim in sewage by the Ugly Sisters. That achievement belongs to this government.
I can say our beaches are cleaner than we inherited them in 2010 from a Labour government. That's clear. She must be very proud of her previous Labour government record achievement on that.
So raw sewage dumped into our streams and rivers and seas, and private companies giving themselves pats on the back with big bonuses. Where is the watchdog in all of this? Why is no legislation being passed? And there's Therese Coffey standing and smiling while she tells us about how bad Labour were, except they're ignoring the fact that it's actually worse than it was before Brexit. Never mind the damage that this has already done to our sea resorts and ports, which have already been hit by Brexit because in order to get into the UK, you need a passport, and 75% of Europeans don't have one because they just use ID. But are you really going to go and sit on a beach this summer knowing that something lurks beneath? We keep getting told that nationalised service was really bad. And yet, is it worse compared to what we have today, where the current situation is exploitative? It's economically damaging. It's rancid health risk to everyone. How is that better than what it was in the past? And currently, it's more expensive. And the problem with that, I can see the expenses getting worse, because it's only a matter of time before either the French government or from the EU come a-calling and say we've got to stop putting sewage in their seas.
Amongst
Directors
people out
don't
there.
pay them.
Directors can be prosecuted. The companies
Yeah,
can be
yeah.
prosecuted. Maybe it's time, who knows, for somebody out there to bring a private prosecution.
And the other thing, of course, currently the water companies, when they pay a fine, they just put that on the bill. So you and I will pay that through our water bills.
As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of Therese Coffey. I would, however, like to say I'm a fan of all of those who support this channel and keep it going and growing. Thank you all for your support. If you'd like to help out, you can become a YouTube member, a Patreon, or even just buy me a coffee. All of it allows me to actually buy coffees, which allows me to stay up late at night making videos like this. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.